mean, it's been really intense. I've been doing more sessions than ever. There's been an increase in, kind of working 12-hour days, even longer, from a place of like utter gratitude. I'm amazed by the souls that I get to meet every day. I'm so happy to be in everybody's presence. And the most important thing is that we recognize that building the immune system isn't just about the herbs we take, the supplements we take. It's really an energetic thing. One of the biggest breakthroughs that we are on the cusp of experiencing on a much larger scale are healing technologies that help to ignite and awaken dormant strands of DNA, and things that are more based in frequency, color, and sound, things that are tuned to an energetic that isn't riddled with or contaminated with or infiltrated with any level of subliminals or reversal codes. And that's a really tough one, because for so many thousands of years, through all the breakthroughs that we've experienced as a community, there's still things that are trying to compromise us. And what I get from this group is that people understand that they're the most advanced technology, and that we override those things whether we recognize them or not. I mean, I can't analyze everything that I've ever put on my wall and always read into it and see, oh, that's got something damaging or corrupt connected to it. I want to rely on my own frequency to override that through recognizing that I'm a co-creator here, and everything is a reflection of me in a lot of ways. I don't like to put one philosophy on everything that we go through or project that on other people. But every time I run into something that is off or feels interfered with or feels like a frequency distortion, I also recognize that as humans, we're struggling with that in our own sense of like, what is our true identity? What were we raised to want to achieve in order to feel a sense of self-worth? And so what I've really observed and noticed is how much that has been targeted from day one. School systems, television, media, not all of it, of course, but these things that we've really like taken on upon ourselves to use as a reference or standard of what we should achieve to feel successful, to feel good about ourselves, to feel beautiful, whatever. And the more we can step back from that and come at this reality from our own terms, through not being afraid to be our true self, being transparent, speaking our truth, being authentic, being willing to lose people that maybe we honor and cherish, understanding that we never lose anything if it's truly meant to be with us. And even in the greater picture, we never lose each other, even those that might seem like they're asleep or they're unconscious or they're destructive. We're still in this oneness field. And the most important thing to me is this unified 0-point energy, and how we can begin to connect with that circulation, not just because it's some big revelation. It's also something that hasn't been available to us in the way that it is now. As of 2010, the sun started to move through the astrological sign of Fiacus, and it's ruled by the ether. And the ether element, as far as the platonic solids are concerned, were put in reversal codes. There have been templates that have been projected upon the earth grids that have created anti-life digressive frequencies that we are subject to facing in our everyday. Just going to the grocery store, just, whatever propaganda is coming at us, whatever physical symptom we might feel. Every day we are faced with, are we going to allow ourselves to attach to that and let it steal and siphon and harvest our power? Are we going to let it steal our dreams? Are we going to let it take over our minds? Or are we going to redirect the energy and begin to notice what's totally available but isn't empowered enough in our world? And so cosmic and natural law is a part of how we're going to be able to upgrade our DNA. And it's not complicated. It doesn't take a masterful education in science. It's about understanding union and polarity integration, and this hierogamic union connected to illuminating and recovering our divine blueprint. So what we might feel we're missing or what we've lost is really only found within. So for us to open up these gateways, we have to do what it takes to access the place within ourself that stands in the face of all this external that's constantly bombarding us, and stand in the face of it and make a conscious choice of, I'm not in agreement. You know, if we are in an abusive relationship, there has to be a point where we say, I no longer consent. I am no longer in agreement. I am done with this. So right now, though, and throughout history, there's that abusive element of people feeling trapped and enslaved and they can't get out. What about their livelihood? What if we can't put a roof over our head? How can we strip ourselves from something that might put us in a vulnerable position that instigates survival? So what we're facing right now is instigating the same sort of feelings, no matter what we might have, no matter how much we've manifested resources for ourselves to, you know, live a comfortable life. Everybody is facing their own mortality. But the thing is, we always have been. So when things are extra emphasized in the news, that pulls our attention in, and we concentrate that energy on that particular scenario, it doesn't mean like we need to expect that we're going to have just all the positive thoughts and love and light out of existence. It's about understanding our need for being prepared for our own sense of peace and security, while also actively connecting into the higher mind, our visions and dreams, and being devoted to making it a way of life. Right now, we're moving into a full moon in Virgo, with the sun in Pisces, conjunct Neptune in Pisces, with the Mercury retrograde that's about to go direct in Pisces, and a whole bunch of planets in Capricorn: Mars, Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn. All these Capricorn energies are right where the South Node is. So on a collective level, we're facing a lot of unconscious PTSD connected to cataclysms in previous lifetimes, epidemics in previous lifetimes, and all these things that we have memories of not feeling we had any control over. And we experienced those deaths and we came back. We never die. So once we can strip ourselves from the fear of death and understand that we always wake up somewhere, we're always shifting into a new level of existence, we can determine that we want it to move forward with a feeling of personal sovereignty. And personal freedom doesn't mean we get to do whatever the heck we want. Personal freedom has a lot to do with staying aligned with integrity and understanding that true freedom comes from not creating a karmic backlash or being stuck in the karmic grid. And so as we process a lot of old patternings from previous lifetimes, that might connect us to ancestral patterns we haven't been able to clear. It could show up as a physical ailment that we inherited. It could show up as a programming we're stuck in that we can't break free of. It could show up as a toxic relationship we don't know how to get out of, or a job we really, really don't like, but we're afraid of the transition. And we might have self-doubt about our true abilities because nobody really validated it when we were young. We have to be really radical and be willing to move forward. And so the North Node, which is where we all need to head as a collective, is actually in the sign of Cancer. So this really illuminates the Saturn-moon matrix and how the artificial component of the moon has been receiving a lot of artificial simulations from the rings of Saturn. And that Saturn in itself has sort of been enslaved. And what it's doing is it's creating this mind control agenda that is all about making sure that we're out of balance. It doesn't matter whether it's the feminine, the masculine, the right, the left. What it seeks is division and duality. As long as we're in duality, we are very vulnerable to being preyed upon. So we have to recognize that it's not just, even though it's not a bad idea, to get like good remedies and herbs and face masks and lots of colloidal silver and all these different things that are going to help us not to have to battle in our physiology something that maybe is designed to completely take us down. It is important in the face of that we recognize what is the ultimate thing that's been targeted. So when we talk about Einstein, when we talk about Sophia, when we talk about the Christ Sophia, when we talk about DNA and junk DNA, and all these things that are keeping us in lockdown, the best way to guard and protect ourselves is to show up with more integrity, show up with more gratitude, show up with more compassion, and also never lose the inspiration to continue to do your calling in the world. It doesn't matter how big or small, there's no real way to gauge the importance of what it represents in the greater scheme of things. There's so many people that their micro world feeds the collective. They don't need to be famous. They don't need to be on a stage with a microphone. And so that sort of distortion of, oh, well, if you're a speaker, you're being heard and I'm not being heard, or if I don't publish this book, then my life mission has not been complete. Most people don't recognize that we all have a common purpose. And a lot of it is addressing what we've inherited, not just from our biological parents or family lines, but from the pantheons, from things in our galactic history, and all these different things that if we take the time to do the inner work and heal within ourselves, it gets magnified and sent out to the collective in ways that I don't think a lot of people appreciate. So very often, pretty much every day, God knows how many times a week, I talk to people like this. I look at their astro chart, and they're some of the most powerful beings that, I mean, there's no way to gauge more powerful, less powerful, but I guess to me, most powerful is you've released yourself of the hooks and the parasites and the vampiric hooks that are trying to steal your life force. So that power is available to everybody. So to me, there's not really a chosen one. There might be a person that represents a frequency or is acknowledging their mission at a young age that can help to turn the lights on for people. But there's no real hierarchy in this new paradigm. The tyrannical rulership of the old Saturn is dying. So when we look at end times, that is what's dying. As Saturn goes through this transformation, because it's working with Pluto, which is death, rebirth, alchemy, and transformation, the new Saturn has to do with holding a physical structure that can contain our multidimensional awareness. And our multidimensional awareness knows the importance of synthesizing and integrating polarity. So if we all take it upon ourselves to do that by recognizing what our physical symptoms are trying to tell us, what our own relationship with ourself is trying to tell us, when we can catch ourselves in a moment and see the quality of our inner thoughts. Is it defeating? Is it undermining? Is it negating? Is it self-doubting? Is it confused? Or is it really excited about something it wants to achieve? And capture those moments and work with it moment to moment. And that's what Virgo's all about. So here we are about to be with this full moon in Virgo, and it's inviting us to look at the nitty gritty, look at the ingredients. You know, when we look at like food we're eating and we look at the label and we see all the ingredients, well, you know, there's going to be some products that are like, we can't even pronounce it. There's going to be other things that we're like, wow, okay, organic coconut oil or turmeric, or wow, it's not that confusing. You can look any of it up and it actually supports the physical body. So when we can hone in a, almost like putting a magnifying glass on our every moment without overly obsessing and being a perfectionist about it, which is also a trait of Virgo, but really like hone in on it to make the subtle changes on a moment to moment level. Every choice we make in those moments are going to feed something we want to manifest. When we're sucked into the fear, we're constantly feeding something we don't want. So this is a really important time to harness our creative powers and to really recognize in the now, what is the thing we're struggling with the most? That is the greatest priority, is to put our attention on that. And to integrate the polarity of the Pisces, Neptune with Virgo. And when that veil lifts, we are lucid dreaming in this reality. And we recognize that everything is a lot more of a metaphor than we realize. So if we got like some sort of virus breathing down our neck, but we can step out of the human reaction and see it from a bigger picture level, is this not an opportunity to let go of the old paradigm? let go of ancestral patterns, let go of the fear, let go of the disempowerment, let go of the vulnerability that we hold because we're constantly compromising our immune system with toxicity, not just from food and our environment, but just the energetic disposition that we hold in the way that we relate to ourselves and others. Because once we master that piece, we're actually able to transmute and alchemize a lot of these toxins and assaults in the external world. If we can't start from within, you know, we're weakened and our sensitivity levels are increased. Now, sometimes our sensitivity levels are increased because we're in such a pure state. And in that case, depending on our astrological map, having boundaries, having, you know, guardians that we can invoke, which we already have, but to bring it more attention is to bring it to life. So the thing is, we're all very, very creative. So there's a difference between somebody who's highly creative that actually paints something, draws something, writes something, speaks something, takes some sort of action in connection with it, and somebody that has those same dreams and abilities and chooses to turn the other way and wakes up in this physical reality, still serving a system it doesn't agree with, which causes depression, anxiety. And in these really initiatory times, that level of division can cause people to want to go on pharmaceuticals, give their power away, and get more disconnected from self. Right now, we have an opportunity to get to know ourselves in a way that is profound. The matrix, whatever you want to call it, anti-life sort of reversal energies want to do everything it can to separate us from that so that we feed it. So we got to understand, where do we enable it? So even if we are enabling it, we don't need to feel guilty or like we're a failure. We've been up against a lot. There's a lot of dark technologies. This is thousands of years worth of ancestral patterns, multi-generational trauma, world wars, and holocausts of advanced civilizations, and massacres of things like the tribes of the Essenes and the 12 tribes of Israel, and how this template has been completely lost to us and it's become junk. And that junk is actually the chaoticness between all of us around the world that have put up walls that have, and I don't mean like borders, and I'm not going to get into the political stuff, but where we hold historical resentments because of these wars, and we forget the thing that's been behind the scenes trying to create it, so that in these profound times, we're going to be conquered and divided, even if they all just aren't even in our world. I mean, the thing is, the imprints that continue to play itself out is very similar to PTSD, where the slightest stimuli can bring back something that can become just as real as the event that happened. So in our ancient history and in our world history that's more current, how many world wars, cataclysms, epidemics, plagues, whatever you want to call, all these different apocalyptic scenarios have we already gone through? Where is that point where we can claim that greater knowing and that appreciation of this experience, where we're learning to use we're learning about how to use our power correctly. We're learning about what a free universe is capable of creating. And a free will universe is playing with the whole concept of power. Are we going to learn the right use of it? Or are we going to amplify it to see who we can control and get to follow us or believe in us or give their power away? That's old paradigm. New paradigm is, how can we be leaders and activators and share a transmission to others that help them to be more of their authentic true self, to help everybody tune their instruments so that we can play this beautiful music together, instead of one person standing there saying, this is the only way, this is the only instrument. We all know that that doesn't work. We're all coming to this huge breakthrough and breaking point of pulling ourselves back, while also understanding and appreciating that there have been incredible teachings and masters that have provided us so much to go on. But at a certain point, we need to step into that realm of being a co-creator with those energies, because what they're trying to teach us, if they're the real deal, is that we have this within ourselves, and that we all hold this common thread of what it means to be connected with unity consciousness in the 0-point unified field, without having to give up our own uniqueness and our own beautiful energy signature that is going to create an art piece different than somebody else. I mean, it's like when we were kids. Everybody draw a picture of your family or of the sun or of a, you know, a beautiful landscape. There's not one kid that is going to do it like any other, unless that person's been taught that you're not doing it good enough, you need to do it like that person. And then they spend the rest of their lives trying to emanate what somebody else has been able to do. We're in a time of being able to inspire each other to do it in our own way. We can provide tools, we can provide reminders, but ultimately we need to help set each other free by saying to each other, our own true self is enough. And to gather in community with that understanding that true oneness is diversity and harmony. You know, we've had a lot of great assistance along the way, and we've attached ourselves to things that have been heavily infiltrated. And a lot of people are recovering from that level of trauma, and trusting others. And it's a very painful reality in thinking, is the greater lesson here to just be guarded and withdrawn and not trust anybody and be paranoid? I don't think so. But where can we find the balance? And so trusting ourselves, trusting what's organically unfolding, allowing adversity to push us in the right direction instead of crush us, and working that energy all the time when we find ourselves beginning to dip into depression, anger, guilt, fear, and allowing that to be a moment that we must capture and work with instead of medicate or judge or project on somebody else to cast blame so that we, you know, act like we're not a person that should be held accountable to nothing. You know, how can we step into balance? So a lot that's coming through to me is reminders that cosmic and natural laws in nature is encoded with us finding wholeness and balance. It is designed to always offer us the opportunity to move in that direction. But as we see with physical laws, balance isn't something that's always maintained. Balance is something that we need to maintain, though, through the willingness to allow things to kind of fall apart. So if we cook a meal, and I know I used this metaphor before, but it just, I always remind myself, if we cook a meal and we've produced something beautiful, we still have dishes to do. We still have compost. We still have, you know, the need to clear the counters so that germs and bacterias and mice and flies and whatever doesn't come and begin to attack, which could potentially make us sick. So where on a multidimensional level, whether it's our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual energies, do we need to clean up? If we have to do it in the physical plane, why wouldn't we need to do it on all these other levels of ourself? Where are we holding on to things and not clearing it to the point where it actually invites things that could potentially make us sick? So for some people, they get sick on the physical level and heal it on a spiritual level. For other people, it might be an energetic distortion that they're holding that attracts some sort of archonic parasite that begins to compromise their health. The whole point is that for us to be balanced, we need to accept maintenance. We don't mind in the physical plane, it's obvious. It's like I walk into my room, there's a bunch of pile of clothes. Eventually they're gonna need to be folded, or I just, whatever, leave them. They don't create as much of an issue as the kitchens and bathrooms. So, okay, those are the priority, right? So in the physical plane, it's obvious. It's like, okay, I mean, these are basic sort of practical things that we can see the direct result of. The problem is that mind control and social engineering has made us so foreign to ourself that when a physical symptom comes up, when something comes in from the news, we allow that stress and accumulation to begin to compromise our nervous system, shutting down our immune system. And instead of being able to clear it and see it for what it is, to be able to create the space to create something new, like a new meal or a new manifestation of something, we get, the accumulation gets out of control. And then these darker entities are like, oh, great, we're all about that. And it's parasitic, right? So if we can look at the physical plane and remember those laws and apply them to the rest of our multidimensional self, we can begin to remove the stigma of maybe waking up and saying, I got a lot of work to do today and I got a lot to clear. Maybe it's through empathic overload of taking on a lot of other people's pain. Maybe it's apathy or a detachment from somebody who's trying to engage us on a deeper level? What do we need to do in every waking moment to be the best of ourselves? And can we offer ourselves the time and space to attend to it? Because what we see in the outer world is work, make money, and to have self-worth and to be successful, this is what it needs to look like. So the most important thing, which I know everybody in this group is not like stuck in that kind of realm, that we can be that beacon for others, and we can see through the programming that they might be stuck in and give them a spirit to spirit hello. Acknowledge that divine template within them. Acknowledge that greater wisdom that knows that this is just a part of how things are. And the more we integrate polarity, the more we conceive new realities. And as we conceive them, it begins to cut through the thickness of this density, this veil, this net, this frequency fence in our DNA, these seals, and we begin to open the stargates. And as we open the stargates, we begin to experience a much more multidimensional perspective. Now, a lot of people come from the multidimensional, and they're trying to come into the earth. They're trying to inhabit a human body. They're trying to learn how to be human. So unity consciousness to me is we all hold properties of the 12-strand DNA and beyond. If we can learn to not be in judgment, not fear something that's different from who we are, and begin to help complete and rebuild this architecture and elemental balance, we're going to do great. So the mind control programs make it difficult, because if we can't have a decent conversation because somebody's holding onto a program, well, that makes it, really hard. But I'm just really sensing that a lot of us don't need to just red pill and awaken people and go nuts about how difficult that is. The biggest priority right now is how can we show up and be the loving daughter or son or father or mother or partner or sibling or friend or community member or just random person that you run into the grocery store. How can we empower the truth of what's within each person without holding them accountable or holding them in a box that they might be desperately wanting to get out of, but they just don't know how? I mean, it's so reinforced every day in the news, in television, commercials, and some people just don't know another way. And that artificial intelligence is constantly coming in, wanting to replace our natural ability to advance ourselves at this time. So I feel a lot of hope and faith. Sometimes that sounds so kind of like that's not enough. But then there's the gnosis, the knowingness, where you have experienced something and it proved itself to you, where beyond a shadow of a doubt, you know it works. But also appreciating that just because it worked for you doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody else. So what I like to offer in my lectures is, can we at least just get familiar with something that doesn't have to define us, but helps us to determine how we want to, kind of work with it. So if sacred union and hierogamic union is where it's at to upgrade our DNA, it's just about reminding each other of that instead of, telling people this is how it should look and this is how it should be. And if you don't do it this way, you're not going to get anywhere. I think we're in a time of really appreciating the different roads that we're taking to get to the same common goal, and drop the need to enforce our way upon others. And I think, just maintaining humility in the face of what we're up against, is really important. It can be really hard because there's so many people with the instinct to say, I've got the parachute, I've got the life jacket. If you hear this information, it's going to change your life. So finding that balance with offering an inspiration while also allowing that person to find it on their own so that there's not a dependency, is also where it's at. All of us, what I think we have in common is we're like expedition leaders. But because of our compassionate heart and because we're always, kind of students, and we're knowing that we're not like necessarily just going to arrive at some place of like guru master status, which is a form of a mastery that is hard to completely embody in this world. That even if we're holding the hand of the slowest hiker, we don't need to let it crush us and prevent us from moving forward. And so what I like to visualize is there's got to be a point where We don't allow ourselves to stay stuck because we feel a responsibility to wake up everybody else. And that the humility comes from, doesn't that person have their own way to wake up too? So where do we draw the line? And that is where I think this Neptune energy comes in, and being able to be a bit of a chameleon. Can we be sensitive and present enough in the now and mindful enough to kind of feel into the situations that surround us? Obviously, we're going to react to a flood different than a fire. We're going to react to, food that's burning, and react to, an alarm going off saying your food's ready. I mean, there's stimuli that's constantly coming at us that's challenging us and who we truly are. There's never an identity that we can solidify in ourselves and just say, this is who I am, and it's a done deal. We have to show up every day with the highest integrity and willingness to invest beauty and wisdom into our surroundings and just be in the flow instead of trying to maintain something that is going to completely be challenged all the time. We have held certain identities in previous lifetimes that might have not been challenged to the degree that they are now, that we can draw upon. But when I look at like the world and what's going on with coronavirus, and I'm asking myself, how can I best show up for my clients? How can I best show up for my family and friends? I just am being more and more mindful all the time that everything is an opportunity for me to heal and transform, and to be as real in the process as possible and transparent as much in as best of the way as possible, to join hands and do this together so that we can just be ourselves. Because when we can be ourselves, there's no higher vibration that exists. And the best thing we can do, I feel right now, is to give each other, permission and offer resources, plant seeds, and then step back. And we're at a phase right now where the mother energy is more present than it's been in thousands and thousands of years. The ether element is now available. What these alignments represent are opening up the gateways if we can stand in alignment. And there's so much that's trying to threaten that. But there's nothing more powerful than doing it ourselves and doing it because it's the right thing to do, and showing people how good it feels and inspiring them to join along, to play their own instrument in their own authentic way, to then harmonize, than to panic and trying to red pill and wake people up, or to drop our vibration into the fear and the anxiety, and to feel perhaps that we're invincible and we don't need to prepare ourselves, or to get so lost in it that we forget that the polarity integration that's happening right now is about what's taking place within. So to me, we win the war within ourselves. We overcome whatever so-called enemy exists within ourselves, because it's been a war on consciousness. And I didn't mean to ramble on how we should handle each other, because that would be contradictory. Like, oh, we should just let it be. And then here I am trying to come up with, like, I think I'm just processing a lot of it myself, because I have so many clients coming at me, things that I'm not really prepared for. People with 100 personalities that have gone through satanic ritual abuse and mind control. People that have been in cults, underage marriage. The woman who's been in the news, Virginia, is coming at the end of the month, and we're doing a retreat for 4 days, and we're trying to create healing centers. And I'm trying real hard to not be crushed by people's stories, not be crushed by the harshness of the world, not put myself on a level of I can heal it and fix it, and reminding myself of how much I need to heal and fix within myself, and just recognize that for me, and what's keeping me sane and grounded, and what has always been sort of my default, is we can actually do this together, and we all have something to offer one another. As much as I might have the tool of medical astrology or this and that, somebody else might have the tool of sound healing. As much as somebody might not work with tools and modalities, they might have an ear to listen. They might, so just committing to being the best of ourselves and being willing to learn and grow from what we gain from one another, I feel is where, when I tune into my energy field, has the greatest circulation and possibility and hope of shielding me while holding an intention for others that they might find that same sense of inner peace. I mean, worst case scenario is not really that terrible because we're infinite beings. The only thing we need to be afraid of is that we are being controlled or owned. If we are sovereign, it doesn't matter if we die, if everything explodes in our face, because we haven't lost our soul matrix. And that's what happened to certain groups of Zetas and gray ETs and aspects of this darker agenda that is trying to recycle its life force through vampirism. And some are trying to rescue themselves of being separated from the soul matrix by certain contact experience or abduction experiences to remind themselves of what got lost. And most of it's been emotionality, sensitivity. All these things that were frowned upon as weaknesses is actually the greatest strength. So as we move into the North Node, which is the sign of Cancer, and we break that Saturn-moon matrix and we really connect with the energy of the mother, we can learn to honor our sensitivities and emotions. We can honor the breakdowns and the crises as great teachers. We can honor the adversities, the pain, regardless of where these attacks are coming from, whether they're organic or not, whether they're induced. Same with weather patterns. Is that HARP? Is that chemtrail? I mean, you know, we're always going to be up against what's real, what's not real. But when we get real with ourselves and we embody the truth frequency by choosing our own authenticity, we'll be able to tell the difference. We might not be able to consciously always know, but we formed an agreement. So if we're going to heal and upgrade our DNA, and it's all about sacred union and healing the relationship between polarity, very much so the masculine and feminine, and forming this hierogamic union, the first stage for me is saying I'm devoted and committed. Because from there, that relationship is going to provide the ability to see what is off within ourselves and maybe the people around us. And it will open up a higher level of communication. So when we look at like 5D, it's throat chakra. Why is it so hard to get into 5D? Is because our throat chakras don't know whether or not to emulate a programming or connect into something authentic. And that power struggle that we experience is still keeping us in that crossroads. So when we can take our power back and choose our words wisely to invest in ourselves, the collective, our partners, our friendships, our community, to bring words of love and compassion and wisdom that pulls us together, I think we're all, you know, really in our purpose as far as what we can do as a collective. When we lose connection with that, that's when the duality, the war between right or left. If you believe this, then I'm going to block you kind of scenarios. Or, you know, we're really fighting ourselves. So to me, we just learn so much every day. And I just can only hold a positive, you know, energy for the larger picture. And I hope I'm not kind of like rambling too much. I know I'm like processing a lot myself, but I guess just to leave on this note, I just feel like every moment's an opportunity to make something difficult beautiful, and that we are the alchemists. Anything that's broken, we can turn into something beautiful. Every wound we can turn into a gem of wisdom and awakening and remembrance, and really tapping into the resources that are going to help us to advance. And that to end duality is to embrace adversity, and to see how it can nudge us in a direction of great awakening instead of continual victimization where we're constantly trying to fight something. You know, and if we can win the war within, understanding it's a war on consciousness, the victory that we end up manifesting and creating for ourselves is not picking and choosing, you know, what's good or bad or negative or positive. It's simply allowing ourselves to address it in the moment from a very high place. And the last metaphor I'll leave with, it's like, first of all, if we're in a maze and we hit our head against a wall, does that mean that we can't move forward? No, it's rerouting us to go right or left. And so it's not, I'm not talking politics or right path, left path, but we have a choice in that moment. Which way are we going to turn? Does it take us on a longer route to get to the goal? Does it take us on a shorter route? Does it really matter? But one that always kind of sticks with me is, if we're an athlete and we look at an obstacle course, we're all excited, you know, if we have that athletic warrior energy in our perception or intention. And those obstacles are things that we're here to jump over. They're things that we're here to allow to make us stronger. But if we look at it like we're the victim and everything's out to get us and all these dark agendas and we're just being attacked and, you know, and doom and gloom, every time we see an obstacle, it's going to hit us in the head and we're going to fall over. We're going to feel defeated. We're going to lose our sense of self-worth. We're going to feel like failures. And humans already do it on enough levels that have nothing to do with trying to overcome something on a much more multidimensional and galactic level as far as greater wars and how we've been compromised. So that's kind of just a natural tendency of how we succeed or how we fail. So when we look at the larger picture, if we can see these obstacles like coronavirus or World War III or, you know, what's in front of us, and we see those obstacles as an opportunity to open up what we have lost touch with and become stronger and more masterful and more, you know, determined and more inspired by the challenge, and we can look at the weapons as tools for our growth and empowerment, then we are not in that duality game anymore. And we've actually transmuted the very things that are trying to prevent us from moving forward efficiently. So when I see an obstacle, when I see some sort of assault, chemtrails, coronavirus, I try and remind myself, look at it through the eyes of an athlete and the warrior that you are, and allow yourself to jump over that hurdle and learn as much about you as possible and recover and reclaim as much as you as possible so that you can hold that override frequency that is available to us. This is a very significant window. It's no joke that it's been heavily prophesized. And the alignments that are coming up are really about the end of the old paradigm and the beginning of the new. The biggest thing we need to be concerned about is that we stay so attached to the old paradigm that it actually makes us sick. Whether that comes from a bioweapon, whether it comes from a natural just illness. The thing is, when we're out of balance, we are vulnerable to parasites, period. And that is the only thing we need to be concerned about. It doesn't matter the source of where it's coming from, because nothing can penetrate our auric field or our being when we hold wholeness and when we hold the direct connect because of devotion, because of intent, because of determination, and because of perseverance. And we can become the most unbelievable spiritual athletes in the cosmos and join with others that have already transcended these lower realms and understand that these dormant strands of DNA hold higher harmonic universes. If we can upgrade these things, we will see the world change around us. When we can purify our own negative ego and our inner elements, the world will shift around us, and we will begin to connect with those that are already there, aspects and pieces of ourselves that are just waiting for us, that are like, please come home. So I just see this all as a puzzle and a challenge that every single one of us has the capability to overcome. And let's not allow it to intimidate us. Let us, you know, just say, I'm not going to stop until I figure it out. And the thing is, it's not as complicated as we think. So there's no greater time it's been more important for us to unite. We've seen a lot of division in the disclosure community, a lot of confusion, and there's no end to things that are wanting to, you know, stop us. But with my wilderness background, I've got so many metaphors connected to the wilderness. You know, you can't destroy the mosquito population, but you can learn about it. You can understand what it likes to feed on. You can understand what makes you vulnerable to it, and then learn shielding techniques and just, you know, be that vessel, be the sailor of your own ship, co-create with these, you know, outer planets, and recognize too that we're going through massive initiations, and we have two choices. We're either going to trust what it's attempting to show us, what it's attempting to awaken, or we can give our power away and continue in this looping that we've done for so long and, you know, give up on who we are. And there are a lot of beings that are trying to rectify those choices that they've made in previous time cycles. And we can heal those species that are us, because we're all in this oneness, in the here and now, when we can take a stand to do it in our own world. The ripple effect is so much more when we can live it and walk the talk and embody it than I think any other way that is there. And I think reclaiming what's sacred and forgiving ourselves for overly reacting to our pain and depression and anger at the desecration of all that is sacred, and knowing that there's some rage that is actually very appropriate, but we want to keep it in check. You know, let's just be really gentle with ourselves. I can't think of a greater time for community. And yeah,